Quick intro to my third released podcast, my first with a guest, Tommy, who I first met almost exactly 3 years ago in my first online sobriety community. He was definitely one of my favorites. Tom and VA was his Zoom handle, and he would pop up once or twice a week, though sometimes he then would disappear for weeks at a time, and always hope to see him again. That's basically what the majority of folks did on there. And always rooting for him. And at the time we filmed this 8 months ago, he was very active with his Instagram account, Pink Cloud Life. And he was, as I recall, about 4 months coming off of a slip that he had to publicly declare. He had this sobriety account going, talking about the joys of sobriety, but he went on a golf weekend with the fellas and ended up slipping, as we say. And I'm proud to announce, but what I loved about that is he so publicly came back, he got right back on the horse, admitted what happened, and then just started his count all over again. He'd got up to 7 months, so close, on the other side of 6 months from getting to a year, and he had to restart that day count, which I do think is so important. I'm proud to announce that he recently hit a year. So I hope you enjoy it. Speaking of Halloween Eve, which today is, this will be 3 years since I talked in my intro podcast about the intervention essentially my mother and sister did. It was on Halloween 2022, 3 years ago tomorrow, and got me into sobriety community. So very meaningful day for me. And this could be coming up on my 3-year sober anniversary, but it's only my 19 and a half month anniversary, but I'll take it. It takes what it takes. I've talked about, I once had 3.5 years, 10 years ago. So I feel like I'm tacked on to all of that. So I feel like I have much more sobriety than that. For those like my college roommate who's in AA, where they basically have a gag order, you're not even allowed to speak publicly about your sobriety practically until you have 10, 20 years, as I understand it. So anyway, one last note, we talking here about some of the various sobriety communities, and I now have my own. If you're watching this upon immediate release, it's not quite out yet. I'm about to start the wait list and then hopefully launch it within a week or two. But if you're seeing this a week, 2 weeks, year, 2 years down the road, please, if you're looking for a community or tell your friends, it's called LEPT, which stands for Learn, Experiment, Perform, and Thrive. And it'll all be in the show notes eventually, but because the URL is ilept.mn.co. That's my hosting provider, Mighty Networks. But anyway, so I hope you'll join mine. It's going to be a lot of fun, as was this conversation with Tom, which is why we needed a part 2 and even a part 3 a few weeks later. And I found that with all of my guests. So enjoy, and thanks for listening. Okay, welcome to the first ever Cappy Hour podcast with a guest. I did do one just with my background. Hopefully everyone watching this has seen, or listening to this has seen or listened to that one. But today I am joined by Tom and VA as I know him. We've actually never spoken directly until just 10 minutes prepping for this call today. So hello, Tom.
What's up? I am here today, folks, with who I affectionately refer to as the Cap Master. Thanks for having me on, man. This is just quick backstory. You guys can laugh if you want. We're going to have to get together again, most likely to get all of the details out for this interview or this chat, just because it took us about 45 minutes to figure out the tech. So, Cap, you can edit that out if you want or not. But yeah, I'm happy to be here, man.
No, I love it. That's so funny. Yes, I already told Tom this is likely going to be a part 1, and it's definitely going to be now because he has to pick the kids up at the bus in less than an hour. So yeah, great stuff. And, Tom and I also figured out we need to look at our cameras, not at each other, which is already killing me because can't even look at them. I could see them in the corner of my. And by the way, I kind of resent that we have to do a video, but they say, some don't. And to me, most people just listen to podcasts, but you got to give the visual option because the ones I listen to, I love at least going to the visual to see the people. So yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it.
I agree, man. I think it helps people feel a little bit more connected, and especially with stories like we're talking about, which you and I have fun, man. We laugh. We're sober now, but we'll probably talk about some things that are not as funny. right? And the people listening
Yeah,
might actually want to see who they're talking to. I think it helps. I think it helps the connection.
absolutely. And what I said to you is I think it's important to kind of get right to the good stuff and then almost back into the backstory stuff. So I think we should talk how we know each other, and it's through a means I've been talking about. A key part of recovery is sober community. In this case, an online sober community. You know, AA isn't for everyone. I'd love to hear. It seems we all have some kind of AA experience, Tom. I had to go to a meeting in college just as part of a ethics class, I think it was, which is ironic. Who knew then that I went from being a witness to a active participant, but it wasn't really for me. So I found the community where I met you, Reframe. It's called a great name, just reframing your thinking about drinking, and that's where we met. And that community's Tom's still on it. I actually got booted off. That's a story for later, but so I'm on a different community now called the Luckiest Club. But that community, just the Wild West, a lot of personalities, a lot of characters on there. They let you really just go for almost as long as you wanted, say what you wanted. People went bonkers in the chat. But yeah, pretty crazy. So Tom, you're still on there, and how many meetings are you hitting?
As often as I can, man. And to something you just said a minute ago, I probably should have gone to AA meetings in college, but that's another story. Yeah, man. So I have tried to. I mean, it's not fair for me to say I've tried to get sober because I've never actually really tried. I have pursued sobriety throughout the course of my drinking career multiple times, but to say that I really tried is not the truth. This time I'm really trying, which means I'm doing the work. But to your point, I am still on Reframe. It's an app in the App Store if anybody's interested. The difference for me with sobriety and doing the work means finding a community. You got to find your tribe. So when I've tried before, either I've tried because it was punitive, I'd gotten in trouble with my wife, or upset some, whatever I mean, we've all got 100 of those stories. So I'll quit drinking, whatever. But even the times when I really thought I wanted to quit, all I did was remove alcohol, right? I didn't do anything different. So after a 30 plus year drinking career, my sphere are drinkers. My friends are drinkers. My family are drinkers. And that's not, I don't mean they're bad drinkers. And I hold no ill judgment at all against anybody who wants to drink. If I were wired to be able to drink normally, I might still drink. Now that I've been sober for a minute, I do have some different opinions just about the overall health of drinking, or impacts on your health from drinking and mental, whatever. But I just mean that to say that I didn't have sober support really at all. So I wanted to quit drinking and thought I could just remove the alcohol from me, but not remove me from the situations. Epic fail. So Reframe, I don't know how cell phones know everything that we talk about and think about, but one night I literally drunk, and I've heard this story so many times from others. I was drunk scrolling one night. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, actively drinking, scrolling through, how can I stop doing this dumb same shit that I do over and over and over? The definition of insanity: repeat the same damn thing and expect different results. I was living it. So I stumbled upon Reframe. I think I downloaded it for a free trial, got in there, and I was actually, I would suggest this to the designers. I was in it for quite a while, just reading stuff, because there's lots of great knowledge in there before I even figured out that they had meetings. So they do have meetings for anybody that might be listening to this. And honestly, Cap, I was pretty much hooked from day one, from the very first one, because I was in a meeting. I didn't have to show my face if I didn't want to. I didn't have to talk, but there were probably 150 people on that Zoom call. And damn if every other one or every third one wasn't telling some little piece of my story. Like, I heard a little bit. I'm actually starting to well up just even talking about it, because I've always looked good from the outside. So I've got this image, it's hard for me to take away the, happy face, but I knew early on, I was like, man, I think I might have found recovery this time. And it was just hearing other people that look like me, might be in the same socioeconomic status as me, could be on a different part of the world. But I mean, it wasn't just people that were like in jail or threat of jail, or people that were, completely mentally unstable. And that is not, I mean that I have my own mental stability issues, but I just mean you can find some circles where people are forced into recovery, or it's punitive, or it's, and it wasn't that. It was like I was listening to lawyers, and in some cases doctors, and And then, and blue collar, I mean, it just had everything. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
rambling already. But when I found
Yeah.
Reframe, brother, I was like, I could get down with these people, and I've been with them ever since. During the week, I try to get on at least one meeting every single day. Still, every day. Weekends are a little bit harder just because I've got young kids, a wife, and we're always running. But every day that I'm able, I'm on a meeting.
Yeah. I think it's so important. I mean, I know I'm at 10 and a half months and we'll get to you, but I know I'm never going to drink again. And I still, same thing, hit at least one a day, usually more 2 to 3. It's almost a negative in terms of the Zoom aspect because, I think in the old days you had to drive to, you'd go to one meeting a day. That's all they were talking about with the AA. You'd have to drive to the meeting, hitting, there was an expression, as long as you went to a meeting that day, you wouldn't drink. Now there's like 4 to 5, maybe sometimes 6 meetings. And if I'm home and available, it kills me not to go on. Sometimes I'll say, all right, I'm just going to go on. I'm only going to listen to the speakers I really know. And then I'll get just sucked right in. So I really sometimes have to go out of my way not to go on them just to be productive, especially working from home. And it's interesting you mentioned not knowing there were meetings. I love telling the story. There was one guy said he was on there for 9 months, didn't know there were meetings. I mean, luckily I found it because my friend Amy said, I had a kind of a mini intervention with my mother and sister, which I talk about in the first episode here. And she said, remember that app? I told you about that app a year ago or 2 years ago. And, I just wasn't ready. But so I love to say, my mother tried to make me go to rehab. And I said, no, no, no. But I promised her I'd look into options, and that got me on Reframe. But it's a great app. It has these daily tasks where it takes you through the neuroscience and it makes you answer some open-ended questions. And there's a forum where people talk about their problems or issues and get advice. So I could see how you wouldn't know. And they even made it kind of hard to find the meetings, almost like they were trying to limit the number on there because it should have been way more prominent. But anyway, yeah, guy went 9 months without knowing. To me, that's all I do, really. Well, I did the daily task, but the majority I do is in meetings. And it's amazing because these communities have thousands and thousands of members, but the average number of people on a meeting is like 150, 200 or so. So it blows my mind how many. The forum is great, but A, it's way time consuming. And then B, just there's nothing like being on a live meeting. So it still blows my mind how many people.
It's funny, Cap, because you're not in that medium anymore. But I never paid attention because I'm really still very newer to the world of sobriety, at least to paying attention. But I'm very committed now. And so I was on New Year's Eve, right? New Year's Day, the whole flip of it. And then in January, the meeting numbers, right, from New Year's resolutions, all these people like, I drink too much, I got to do something. The meetings went from like 150 to like 350 for like 3 weeks, man. You couldn't even raise your hand because you'd log on. Like if you were 10 minutes late, there was 18 hands up. And you're like, well, at least I'll hear a lot of good stuff. But they're already, sadly, really, it's not that part in the joke, but they're already starting to dwindle back down to average. But you would have gotten a kick out of that, man. I hit my first couple of meetings after the new year. I was like, holy smokes. Like there's no room left on here. So, but it's also good to see, man. So many people are open and willing to at least checking it out. And if I can take a second, because I want to make sure that I am clear on something that I said a few minutes ago, because it may have sounded in the way that I didn't want it to sound. You said maybe we'll touch on like AA versus Reframe or something like that. So I'd like to hit that now if you don't mind.
Sure.
So I think, first of all, any program that connects you with other people that are like you is worth its weight in gold. They say community is the opposite of addiction. I've tried to do it by myself and it didn't work. So I have to, just by my experience, agree with that comment. AA, I think, is it's the granddaddy, man. It's tried and true. It works. It works if you work it. There's a saying that I heard once and I loved. It said, this only works every time. And that's if you do the work. So AA is what created basically everything else that we get the good fortune to experience. So for me, I decided AA wasn't for me, at least as my only vehicle to a sober community, because I live a little bit more in a rural community. I have good friends that live in areas that are more populated and probably more well represented with people of all different walks of life. And that, what I'm saying, to be crystal clear, isn't to take away anything or any value from any human on this earth, no matter what the heck they do, what language they speak, the color of their skin. I couldn't care less about any of that. But what really helped me through Reframe versus my local AA, the local AA meetings were very, very small. And most of the people, many times all of the people, just were nothing like me as a person, which is not a slam. It's the differences that make the world go round. I get that. But we all had similar drinking problems. So I definitely take something away from that every time. But then when I found Reframe, I would find in one meeting 5 other people who mirrored my exact drinking life. They had they looked good from the outside. They had a successful career. They had a beautiful family. They had cars. They had, it was, I didn't really have a rock bottom. It was just always up and down. I was tested. I was always going down. But so for that reason, I just really felt that Reframe was a better community for me to be consistent with. I still go to AA sometimes. I still got one good friend locally who he's got a lot, 6 or 7 years sobriety. So we're in a different space along that scale. But he and I'll go to a meeting every now and then. And I really would like to do more. But the convenience and ease of Reframe, like you said, man, I'm at work. If I'm not on work phone calls and there's a meeting, even if I don't have the need or the desire to share, I'll put it on and listen just because it's so easy to have access to healing, right?
Yeah.
So it was those reasons that made me feel not as connected to AA, but I truly think it's a wonderful program. And I think maybe if I lived in an area that was more populated, those meetings might have a bigger attendance and maybe there'd be more people that I would more firmly identify with. And again, this is just me. That's me kind of shooting myself in my foot. And I know that, but I will very quickly identify out if I don't fully identify in. And that's something I had to learn and admit about myself really early on, because I don't know if you're like me, Cap, but years and years and years I kept drinking because I'm not as bad as that guy, right? Or I'm not like them, or they're not like me. If I went to a meeting and it was all people who were just a very different walk of life for me, it isn't judgment on my part. I think the little evil bastard that lives back here, locked in the back of my brain, that we'll call his name alcoholism, you can call him whatever you want. I think he, runs the switches back there. And if I didn't really fully identify in, and there was any little teeny bit of an out, gone, baby. I don't identify with these people. They're very different. They're very this, they're very that. They're not like me. And I'm back out drinking. So that's a long, you can edit all this out, man. I talked to Reframe. Reframe gave me a lot more connection, and it made me feel like I could really, really identify in. And that's where the leverage started to turn for me.
Yep. Yeah. You just made me think of a quote. I'm on a Facebook that has a lot of sober groups. One I'm in, and I'll have to look up the name, but someone said, why can't something, I'm paraphrasing, but why can't I beat this? I'm such a perfectionist and successful person, blah, blah, blah. And the first comment was, that's why you haven't been able to. So for me, I think it took me so long because I'm like, I'm not letting a friggin' liquid destroy my life. I'm disciplined in every other area. I can beat this thing. So it wasn't just comparison to other people, although that is true as well. It was just, I think it takes a long time, the old surrender, it's people love to say you gotta, and I never fully understood what that meant, but we think about it as control freaks a lot. You hate to say you're powerless to anything, but that was a big breakthrough for me. My buddy said, I kept trying to moderate, and he goes, what you're missing is you think this is in your control, and it's not. And that really helped. Were you going to say something to that?
Could you see me just like chomping?
Well, the thing lights up. It lights up very sensitive. The platform we're using, I think if you even sniff, it lights up as if the other person's talking. So, but anyway, go ahead.
I have a little bit of a bad habit with interrupting people, and it's something that I'm conscious of. So I try not to do it so that you get to finish your thought before I jump in. And let me preface, I don't know how this will get edited and put out there, but I want anybody watching to know that every word that comes out of my mouth is for this guy. I'm no mentor. I'm no teacher. People like sometimes in the Reframe meetings, man, after I share really for me to get my truths out of me and out to the universe, because anything that I say is out there. And then for some reason, for me, that's freeing and it's more accountable. But people are like, make comments like I know what I'm talking about, or like I can, and I just don't. I want everybody to know I'm not doing this interview because I think I can share things to tell you how to do what you need to do. I'll share things that have worked for me, but by no means am I'm not a mentor. I'm not a leader in this space. I feel like I'm finally doing it right. And I've tried so many times that maybe something I say can provide some value for someone else. So that said, take no offense at anything I say, anyone, because all I'm going to do is talk about me.
Yeah.
What the heck were we talking about before? Because I did have
I
something
was
to say and I
just
forgot. You can
about,
edit this part out too if you want.
well, one thing I didn't want to mention, you mentioned you were nervous coming into this, which I thought I would be, but I just don't get nervous anymore. I'm never, one thing I told you, I only told you a few things in advance wanted to ask you. And one was, do you have a favorite meme or favorite advice, etc.? For me, one of them is the true measure of success is a calm nervous system. Because most of us have anxiety. I drank. Ultimately I say I drank to cheat the system, so I didn't have to feel nerves. Of course, it's a progressive disorder, so it works less and less. And in the end, for those of us with it, it becomes that anxiety pill that only works for 20 minutes and then it just makes it worse. But anyway, in my sobriety, now at 10 and a half months, and I once had 3.5 years when I started 10 years ago, I feel like I'm right back there. I'm so calm now. So I didn't even feel the least bit of anxiousness today. Although I still have a crutch with my coffee, still have my Christmas mug here, and it's just half calf. But I still feel like I need something to cheat the system. Although this is not doing a damn thing for me. But do you find and I know AA coffee's a big thing, at AA. So you're a lot of us, right? And I assume that's the reason. I think we need, or I've always said, we're almost become beverageaholics, right? My cousin quit. Now he goes out and drinks 10 Diet Cokes, or he'll have 5, 7 NA beers. I joke he's chasing a buzz. It takes about 10 or 12 NA beers to get one beer. So I joke that that's what he's chasing. But do you find you're doing that? I wish I could just say I sip for enjoyment, but I kind of use it as a crutch. I'll even chug a little small chug before I share, which is just ludicrous. But
I'll tell you, you've got maybe a couple questions packed in there, so I'll try not to forget them. I want to back up to what you said a minute ago, because I have probably even offended people by being so strong in my conviction to what I'm about to answer to your question about nerves. I can't tell you how many years of my life, and I'm going back a lot of years, that I've told people and myself that I suffer from anxiety. Well, I've drank my whole life. I mean, very literally, and I've drank heavily since the beginning because that's the wiring that I have. And since I have gotten sober, it's not that there aren't still anxious moments, and that's what I felt, gearing up to doing this with you. And it wasn't nervous so much like, you don't make me nervous, man. Even when you used to share, you just have a pleasing, happy, calming effect. You really do, man. You're a perfect candidate to do what you're doing, and I applaud you for that.
appreciate it.
It's almost more like nerves because I have done nothing. I guess that's not fair to myself. I have done very little over 20, 30 years other than drink a lot and daydream about all the great things I would do. And I mean, like I said, I looked good from the outside, so I've always had the job and done, I've done enough, but I always had bigger visions, bigger goals, man. I have a lot of potential, I believe, that I still want to use before I leave this earth. So the nerves come from I'm kind of like a little kid, man. I'm going to do the things that I've said I always wanted to do. So once you open your mouth and say you want to do something, it takes you to the next level from when you would just get drunk and daydream about how amazing you'd be on all these interviews and all these podcasts and all these other areas that I'm choosing to grow into. So there were some nerves, but I can tell you I know that there is an anxiety disorder that people have and suffer from. I might have a little bit of that. I am absolutely ADHD. I've joked about it my whole life, but it is real. It is what it is. You learn to live with what you've got. But 90% of my anxiety, which at times was crippling, was
Wow.
alcohol infused. And I just can't stress that enough. If anybody's watching this, I mean, we all talk about, or I used to even joke about it, the hangxiety, right? But I mean, I felt true, honest to God, go hide from the world, which just meant I drank more anxiety, like the inside's just a horrible mess. And I thought, this is just me. I don't want to say how many weeks it took, 2, 3, 4, maybe whatever, 5, for all the alcohol to really kind of peter out. And it probably might not even still all be gone. Today I'm 114 days alcohol free. Last year I had 7 months, but then had to test some boundaries. We can talk more about that later if you want to. But the anxiety issues that I've, for my life, since I've been an adult, thought that was stuck with, alcohol created 90% of that stuff. I almost said a bad word on your interview, Cap. So a lot of that is gone, man. And I use a lot of self-talk. It's hard for me, bro. I'm former Marine, man, raised by a man, whatever. And to explore things that I'm learning in groups like Reframe and reading and whatever in sobriety, like self-talk, like talking to yourself. I'm like, oh, that's kind of hippy dippy. But man, I make a point now when I wake up in the morning before I get up of telling myself a few things. And it's simple things, and it amazes me, but it actually works. Like I can talk to my brain and put it in the space where I want it to be. A lot of the times, like I tell myself, I'm calm. Today's going to be awesome.
Ooh.
I've got this. As long as I don't drink, I can accomplish anything. But I am calm. My life is peaceful. And I swear, Cap, it's crazy, but I feel like the blood pressure and the anxious feelings, just abate. I mean, life is never perfect. There's always going to be anxiety and stresses and things like that. God knows I've got them. I'm an old fart. I've got 3 kids, ages 23, 12, and 10. And I'm 52. So you do that math. So, I mean, there's always stress, but that's a long answer but it's something I was passionate about. Anxiety I thought was going to ruin my life because it was terrible. But
yeah,
I gave up the booze and it is almost completely gone.
It is, isn't it amazing? Yeah. Alcohol-induced anxiety. It's not talked about enough, but it really, really is a thing. It's a big time thing. And it takes a while for it to go away. You just said something.
Well, and I said I'm going to unpack because you had a couple questions in there.
Oh,
and I got
yeah.
some on the very first one. I forgot about drinking.
Yeah.
Real quick. This will be a quick answer. So
wait, hold on. Hold that thought. There's something you just said that I want to add on though, and it's going to kill me.
You know what? We need to take notes. That's actually a good point.
I know. You're right.
I should take notes while you're talking and vice versa.
I need a system for that. Absolutely. It's going to kill me. It was a good thing to add. The third person thing. So, I don't think Reframe does this, but the Luckiest Club, TLC, as I'll call from now on, introduces a topic at the start of every meeting. And they often do a reading, and then they'll speak to their personal experience. So super quick answer. Does Reframe do that at all, or they just let you go and everyone speaks on their own?
The coaches always introduce a topic if it's a topic and share meeting, but then they are very, very clear to say, if you just need space, you share about anything you want to.
All right. They do yep. Now I remember.
Yeah.
Sorry to jump over. Yep. I don't know why I was thinking they didn't, but so she did one. It's called, I believe it's Illyism. ILLYISM, something like that. But it's talking. It's basically being a cheerleader for yourself, talking in the third person to yourself. I never do it. But I learned that a month or so ago, and I swore I was going to. I have major procrastination issues and perfectionism. So I said, I'm going to talk to myself. Be like, Brian, that's it. You can be productive this hour. You can do it. You don't have to be perfect. But I forgot all about it. So good reminder.
Talking about forgetting things, for the past couple minutes, I've been staring at you again instead of where
and see, I can't catch you because I'm not.
That's okay. Hey, you can edit that part out because you're doing great. I'm telling you, man, you're like a game show host, dude. You should. I mean, I'm thinking Jeopardy, maybe Wheel of Fortune. You got this.
Well, I'm never taking my head off of it, so that's all. It's pretty easy. I mean, it's every now and then I'll glance down. It's nice to look at you, but I do it for 2 seconds. So.
Oh no, man, you've got this. I'm not even kidding, man. People used to. I'm blowing you up a little bit, but people used to, I think, look forward to and love your shares. You've got a personality that pulls people to you, man. You're made for this. I think you found something that's going to serve you very well. I really mean that.
All right, I appreciate it. And since I teased it, Reframe, I eventually got booted out of, and kind of one of the issues was, really wasn't, but was that some of the people, I'd say 90% of the people loved me, but there was about 10% that were not big fans. Almost, I'd say, couldn't handle me. They couldn't handle my enthusiasm, or Reframe. It's a Wild West in terms of they let you crosstalk, they let you give advice. And I definitely did that a little to the extreme. And I didn't understand until I got into TLC, where they're big on not to, that people don't really want to hear it. To me, it was like, isn't that what people are coming for? But
For my expertise, isn't that why you're all here? For me? Let's make it all
so you
about
know
me.
what
Bring
I'd
it
love,
to me, Cap. Bring it to me.
you know what I'd love to say is it's all in the phrasing. You just have to say, this worked for me. And
And then you get
that
to say it
means
anyway.
this worked for me and I think you should do it. But it's all the difference. If you say you should do this, people don't want to hear it. I relate to that now. So yeah, I'd often share towards the end, not even, it was sometimes nice to be the drop the hammer at the end, but I just was never ready. I had to talk myself into sharing. So I would just take notes on every share and then love to just, spit it back to them. So anyway, some people couldn't handle me. There was one guy on the men's call. I'll never forget this. He said, I was talking about the voice, right? Which is all over you. It's exhausting. So this, the drinking voice that compels you to drink. And he actually put in the chat, he is so exhausting. And I saw that after my share. I convinced myself he was talking about the voice. And some people do give it a name. So I'm like, wow, this guy, he's talking about the voice. And I even told that to my friend Carrie, who's on Reframe. And she said, oh, I totally would have thought he was talking about me. But I convinced myself. Well, the next week, he bashed me in the chat again, a little more directly. So I was like, oh my God, he was talking about me. So I get it. I was pretty exhausting. I had a guy, my also friend Rick on Reframe. He said, dude, I like you better when you're more mellow and speak on one topic instead of like 20 different topics going a mile a minute. But dude, it was the early days of sobriety, man. I learned a lot from that. I don't even take it personally now. I mean, that was great.
And we are what we are, man. Like, that's what drew me to you. So one of the things that's really helping me in sobriety, and this is a whole other topic, maybe a whole other call, but I have my whole life, I've had the need to please disease. I was raised by an alcoholic father.
Never heard that.
Need
the
to
disease
please
part.
disease.
I love that. Need to please
Yeah,
disease.
I just feel like I have to please everyone. I got to be what everybody wants, like a chameleon, social chameleon. So now, getting sober, being able to stand up for yourself just a little bit more and recognize, some of these things that other people may not care for is going to happen. I don't need everybody to like me. And it's a real thing, dude. Some people call it masking or whatever, but I was raised by a dad who was I shouldn't say it, never mind. I was going to use some words that might offend people watching this. I was raised by a very country father who wanted a son that had very different interests than me. And I was a scrawny little sickly kid that's allergic to just about everything that grows and is in the air in the state in which I grew up, and was, I wanted to like play with the animals and draw pictures and ride my skateboard, and that wasn't what my alcoholic father wanted. So, from a very early age, I was always just pretending because what I wasn't good enough. And I think that identifies with a lot of people that drink too much, because that's one of the key factors from a lot of the shares I've heard of why people have turned to alcohol. You're trying to please others. You're not good enough. You don't believe that you're good enough. And I'm finally to the point, and it still stings and hurts and pisses me off, but what other people think about me is just none of my business.
Yep.
I really can't control that. So Willie Nelson, I read a quote by Willie Nelson, oh Willie, and it said something, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, I can't get it exact, but it said something about, I decided that worrying about things never did any good, so I'm choosing not to do it. That's like for me, boom, that's a mic drop, because I worried so much about how I looked to everyone. I needed to please everyone. It is what it is, and it contributed a lot to my drinking over all the years. Now I don't care so much. I would have been pissed off that somebody put that in the chat, and I probably would have gone after them just because I'm an asshole. But I don't care as much anymore, man. I'm not gonna let it get to me.
Yeah, and I'm happy that even when I knew the next week, I more so just laughed at him, because I knew there's a lot of unadjusted people in the world. I love to say, that haven't done the work, and we of course all have our people preferences as well, but largely, I mentioned to you one guy on Reframe would literally turn his back when I would share. He was also a know-it-all, so he'd be in the chat correcting everything everybody says. So I think that's one reason, he didn't like me. He took issue with, because I would throw out some theories, but they were mine, and I would say it, and I'm always thinking of different theories, etc. This one had to do with, actually quickly, and this is a great topic I wanted to get into. We could come back, had to do with, I was taking Klonopin for my anxiety so I wouldn't drink. Um, so we should revisit that. But let's go back to actually, you were going to say I asked you a couple questions at once. I know one was your favorite meme or favorite piece of advice. So do you remember?
Well, in that particular period of time, you were talking about drinking a lot, like other things, just drinking a lot, like lots of coffees and lots of whatevers.
Oh,
So,
right. Yes. I did want to hear your use of coffee as well. Yeah.
so you hold that thought because I want to speak to
I
what you
got to
just
write this down.
like. We're trying to keep from going down the rabbit hole, man. But whatever.
Yeah.
I'm talking to your audience now, not you, Cap. If you folks are laughing at us just a little bit, that's okay too, because laughter is power, man. So you hold that thought, Cap. But I want to revisit Reframe just briefly because I think it's evolving and growing as well. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I think Reframe is still relatively new compared, like I said, compared to AA, where the rules are the rules are there. I mean, it is what it is. It's served people for a very, very long time. Reframe has started throwing out people like that. They get openly corrected in the meetings on the chat or kicked out of the meetings. So
Wow.
there's definitely there is a chat mod, like moderator, that is
Yep.
not the coach that's leading the meeting in every single meeting. And if people are out of line in those chats, then they get booted. They get warned and they get booted. And people get
Yep.
booted from the app entirely for being really inappropriate. And just to send you some love right now, I know who you're talking about because you and I had talked a little bit offline, and that dude got booted. So he's no longer allowed to harass other people like that. My days back in the Marines, man, they teach you from day one. There's always 10%, always. And it doesn't matter. It's not just military, and it's not just work. It's not just family. It's not just the sober community, but it's everywhere. So in our sober community, there's 10% that are just going to be jackasses. There's 10% of the people out there that get off and feel powerful from berating others.
Yeah.
It's how they elevate themselves. And man, you just got to just smile and wink and walk away, because the thing that's the truth is if that happens to you, Cap, you get to walk away and still be Cappy, and you're still sober. You live an amazing life. You're healthy. You're handsome. You're
Oh,
outgoing. Your life is
oh,
freaking great. I'm sure you're not without your own struggles, but that jackwad is going to go
right.
back to wherever he's from and crawl under his rock and feel bad about himself and keep dealing with whatever struggles
Yep.
and whatever miseries he's got or she's got that make them act like that towards other people. And that
Yeah.
doesn't make it easier to respond to them necessarily when you're the one that they're coming at. I had somebody come at me in one of those meetings through the chat, and I caught it before it had been very far away because I was, and I called them out, and they left the meeting. They're like,
Good
"Whoop,
for you.
peace out." But your life is great, and they're dealing with their own struggles. Doesn't make it right that people act like jackasses.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? I've also learned that a lot of those people, I know a lot and I can't prove it. I think a lot of people do listen under the influence. You're not supposed to share under the influence, but especially at night, especially Friday nights, they're often the people that really are out of line might have a drink or two, might have a few drinks in them, as they say. And it's true. That guy we're talking about, I always knew had a lot of rage. He even admitted it. And at least he was in therapy, but whatever if he was going once a week, he needed to quadruple up on it. And I was just watching the show 911. They have one based in LA and one based in Austin. Rob Lowe's runs the Austin one. Just a TV show. It's fiction, but it's based on real life 911 calls. Rob Lowe's been sober for like 30 years. So he's worked in a sober character, and he was in AA, and he was actually lying about his sobriety, and the priest who was running the meeting, which isn't normal, it's often in churches, but just so happened they're not usually involved. Anyway, he called him on it, and he said, every alcoholic I know comes in here with a ton of rage. And until you deal with that, you're going to struggle. So that's often too. Those unadjusted people have a lot of rage. They need someone to hate. That's what it was. I was the perfect villain for that, even though all I was trying to do was inspire first myself and then others as well. But yeah, some people didn't like that, didn't
Well,
like strength.
we'll close this topic. I mean, unless you want to keep talking
Yeah.
about it, just know this, and anybody that might be any of your listeners, those people are always going to come at the ones that are growing. Like they will try to pull you back down with their cynicism and their comments, and it's because they're not. So once you put yourself out there, like Cap, you put yourself out there to get your truths out so that you could heal. And when you put things out to the universe, that's what we're doing. We share, it gets out of us, and then we're accountable for it. But you also were helping others. Anytime you share, especially with someone like you that's outgoing and really has positive energy, you draw people to you. That upsets people like that. So it's just that knowledge that you're going to have a target for some people. It sucks. I mean, but it's human nature. It is what it is.
Yeah. So, that guy definitely needed to do more work. He was on all the meetings, but I think that was the only work he was doing. Well, I guess he was going to therapy, but that's once a week. But there's so many components to work, which I want to talk about as well. One for me quickly, I wanted to say was my coach, great piece of advice. She said about people pleasing. She said, Brian, when I was at my pizza shop trying to get every order perfect, she said, your customers would not want you to compromise your sobriety for the sake of getting them a perfect order or because you made a mistake. So that's another, great reminder I keep in mind, In fact, one of my favorite quotes is, you have permission to disappoint others and to stop disappointing yourself. That one really turned things around. Yeah, go.
So, man,
that is such a good one.
This will be my public plea to the Capster. That dude is gone. Reframe is evolving. We miss you, brother. So if you want to grow your sober community, come back and see us, man. Come back and visit.
I would love that. I need to send an email to the head guy, who I love, and I considered him a friend, but in the end we had a few differences. I just had some weird luck on there. I mean, really, one quick story. This shows, how there's like two sides, and you say you're falsely accused and no one believes it. So I was accused of drinking on camera once. I was like, what? Although I knew exactly what it was. So one night I found in the basement of my pizza shop, I found a little bottle of vodka. And I should have poured it out when I was in a sober streak, and I should have poured it out in the spot. But I said, no, I'm going to bring this home. I'm going to join this 9:00 call, and I'm going to do a pour out, which Reframe did. My TLC, I've never seen one on there. I don't know that they disallow it, but and you have to tell me, maybe in a word, do people still do pour outs on where they basically, I remember a woman said, someone gave me a bottle of wine as a gift, and she did the pour out right on camera. It's so cool to see.
I've never seen.
Do people still do that?
I've never seen that before.
You've never seen one? Wow. Interesting. Well, I always wondered about it because you do have to present the bottle, and some people do get easily triggered. Though I like the best line I heard from a Reframe coach is, where you get triggered shows where you need to do your work. I mean, we're surrounded by alcohol. If you can't handle seeing a thing of alcohol, like you got to work on that. But anyway, so I brought that thing of vodka home, and I went over, I showed it, and I guess I brought my thing with me over to my sink, and I poured it out on camera. And then the head guy sends me an email, you were drinking on camera. I said, absolutely not. And thank God I screenshotted. I did that a lot, the chat, because I would get a lot of nice comments. And some woman's like, oh, I love a good pour out. So I even sent it to him. I was like, dude, I don't know where this came from. And I was so disappointed that the moderator, he didn't ask the moderator who would have told him it was a pour out. I later came to find out she somehow confessed to me. I don't know how it came up, but we were messaging on Instagram, and she said, I was the one that reported you. I said, oh my God, you weren't paying attention then. And that is a problem. The moderators, that was before they had a chat moderator. So they were trying to do their job and look at the chat.
Yeah.
She must have just been looking at the chat, and then all of a sudden saw me like holding up a bottle. I don't know how you miss a pour out, but that was one of the issues. But there were a couple other things.
Well, I'm kind of joking. I mean, I'm not joking in the sense that I just love to have more interaction with you through that medium, but maybe I need to come check out TLC or whatever you called it, because there's no reason I can't also grow my sober communities. It's the communities that are keeping me sober, man.
Yeah. The only, quick thing I'll say on TLC is that they are the nicest community in the world. I did leave Reframe. It felt a little cliquey, a little judgmental. This one, it's insanely, and it's made me such a nicer person. The chat is insane how nice it is. And I find myself making these crazy nice comments and not judging at all. I mean, almost from the moment I first shared, which I'd love to talk about, I stopped judging others because I didn't want anyone judging me. Although you also brought the great point, which I never really took to heart, the old, what others think is none of your business. But I've really taken that to heart now. It's so true. Who cares? Which is my overall mantra, taken from a woman, sober woman on Survivor named Carolyn. Who cares? Who cares what other people think? You know, have you heard the term vulnerability hangover? I never heard till TLC, but it's what you get after you share when you're worried you either divulge too much or whatever. Mine would be being a perfectionist that I went over time, which TLC keeps pretty liberal to 3 minutes. Does Reframe, have they really never enforced, right?
There is one host, and we're kind of getting off of topics that are probably real productive, but
Yeah.
it's interesting to me. There is one host, moderator, coach, whatever you call him, who runs a little timer in everyone's share, not to cut them off, but just so that everybody's kind of respectful of everybody else. But there are
Right.
some that just let people go on and on and on. And, you know, sometimes there are shares where people just need more time. I mean, there are people out there that if they're suffering or if they're on the verge, they need to talk more. But to your point, and this will sound a little judgy, and I don't mean for it to, but if it does, then, you know, who am I? Don't worry about what the hell I said anyway. But there are some people that just maybe don't have enough people in their life to talk to, and they get on these mediums and they'll just talk for 10 minutes, and it doesn't have anything to do with drinking or not drinking, which it doesn't necessarily have to, but if you're going to get on and just talk about how your job was stressful that day, that's cool, but do that in 3 minutes. And I mean, you can that ties to drinking, right? Stressful job, you don't like your job, more apt to drink. So definitely come out and share about it. Do it. That's what we're there for.
Yeah.
Just don't do it for 10 minutes. I don't need to hear every day.
Yep. You know, one thing I want to talk about, we say that we are the luckiest. It's based on the book, well, We Are the Luckiest, it's called, by Laura McCowan, who runs the head of the Luckiest Club. And why we are the luckiest. And now I know 30 reasons why. You know, I used to struggle with the gratitude practice, and I know you share about that on your Instagram stories, you know. We're the luckiest because we do group therapy. These calls are group therapy, and I never would have done that in my life. As Laura says, everyone needs to do the work. We're just forced to do it because of our little drinking problems. So it's a great, so my point was group therapy. So it's true. My buddy who's not one of us, thinks we just sit and talk about drinking or not drinking the whole time. But no, it's really, and as everyone says, it's not really the drinking that's the problem. It's wanting to escape from a life that we're not happy with. So yes, but
Problems are the problem. The drinking is actually the symptom. Man, that is a great point. I don't know how far you want to dive into just that topic, but that's a great thing to talk about for just a hot second. Pause that real quick. I apologize.
All right.
Just give me 1 second. You can edit this part out.
Yeah, sure. Well, I like the real deal. While he's doing that, you know, to keep everything for the general public, I think it's good to know most shares are considered 3 minutes, although I'm not sure. I need to get to an AA meeting. It's been a while. I know they have typically a speaker share that I believe is around 20 minutes, but then they let people share for, say, 3 minutes. So I think it's perfect. Even if you do go long, having that timer set. So I do think it's great that TLC says, please set a timer for 3 minutes to try to give you a goal. I was even going to say to you, Tom, try to make your reply, because it helps me. I can get a little loquacious at times as well, to try to do reply. I have a funny story about the word verbose. I'll tell it quickly. My outside sales rep, this guy named Jim, and when I was an inside rep, and he would go on and on for hours on his cell phone, just killing time. And I once told another guy, I said, yeah, I was talking to the verbose Jim XYZ. And the guy Jim later calls me and he says, hey, this guy ratted me out. I told another mutual friend. And so this guy Jim called me. This is much later in life. And he said, hey, it's the verbose Jim Callahan calling. And I was like, oh, sorry, dude. But it is always good. Even I try to do these YouTubes within 5 minutes and end up being 10 minutes. So I think it's always good. I was almost going to say have your replies be 30, 60 seconds or whatever. And then if you go over, at least you have a goal. But do you remember what you're saying when you got up or no?
I do. And it's,
yeah,
you know, people like you and I, we like to talk. I don't care. You can dice that up any way you want to. We like to talk. It's why we do. It's why I do what I do for a living. It's why I like sharing. It's why I was excited I loved it. I'm loving this. I just like to talk. Usually, and sometimes I even talk about things that are worth listening to. That's not often, but every now and then. You mentioned the group therapy thing, and I kind of get some of that same type of feedback from people that are very close to me. I don't want to name names or point fingers necessarily, but I really think there's just a very general and maybe widespread whatever opinion of people that have admitted that their wiring is faulty when it comes to drinking, and then they go seek help for it. I think it's really misunderstood in that, I've had people treat me like they have to clear all the alcohol out of a room because I'm going to go run and dive across the table just to grab it, because I'm in therapy or I'm in the AA or whatever, because I've admitted that I have a problem. And while that's frustrating, to your point, what has amazed me about being open that it's time for me to not drink anymore and recovering kind of out loud and being in all of these groups and listening to all these other people's stories, what is truly, truly amazing is the level of self-awareness and personal growth of the human beings that are alcoholics or have alcohol use disorder or just faulty wiring. Pick whatever phrase you want, because it doesn't matter at all to me. But that level of seeking growth, personal awareness, healing, whatever you want to call it, I think that they're several notches above society. Like, I think so many people in society just kind of get caught in a rut of life, even the ones that don't drink, man. It's like, this is what I have to do every day, and I got to earn this much money, and then I got to go home and take care of my kids, and then we got to make dinner, and then we got to clean the house, and then we got to go to bed, and then I do it all again the next day, da 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 da. And even people that don't drink have past stuff, stuff from when they're kids and breakups, life builds up, life is hard. So the people that are in these meetings, because they turned to alcohol to solve their problems, are now working on their problems. And I think the great majority of people, even people very, very close to me, are like, well, you just have to be on those meetings so you don't drink. And that really isn't the case. Even now, at almost 4 months, I've already lost a lot of the compulsion to drink. Like, I don't really have the cravings anymore. There are still situational cravings where I'm like, oh, that's where I would have drank a lot, that kind of thing. But it's just the growth, man. It's like, it's next level living to be able to address the things that had me drinking to escape for all those years.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I love to say, and I think I made it. I have a bunch of things where I think I made them up, and then I'll Google it and be like, damn it, someone beat me to it. This is going to sound totally unique, but just the wording, I say life is hard, but drinking makes it 1,000 times harder. It really does. Or life gets so much easier when you stop drinking. I said to my therapist once, I said, wow, life is so much easier than I remembered, after I had 90 days of sobriety or something. It's crazy. It's crazy how it has the opposite effect in every area. It really does. And yeah, there's some people love to say something like, I have 99 problems, but drinking's no longer one of them, or something like that. And the problems go down. I told my therapist, I said, listen, I need you right now, but I'll tell you, once I get sober, don't take it personally if I cut you loose, because that's where the majority of my problems come from. But the beauty now is I'm now working on higher level stuff, becoming a better person and all that. So if anything, I now need to double down. Just when I thought I was all set, because my day-to-day, all the problems that alcohol were causing went away. But now I've a lot of free time. The brain's freed up. And that's where you need the therapy, because a moderator said on a call, the brain is a little a-hole. It just looks to make trouble. So you got to strengthen that prefrontal cortex, as I'm learning. So yeah, man, I know we haven't even scratched the surface of what we need to talk about.
You'll have to edit this a lot, man, just to make it fit within your time constraints. One of my favorite quotes. Did you see how good I did at not cutting you off that time? I sat very quietly while you finished. But I just think this quote is amazing. Someone once told me the most dangerous space for you to be in is the space between your ears, which is right here. Because I'm telling you, man, I mean, think about it. Especially when you're actively drinking, if you have a drinking problem, you can get so spun up in your own brain about things that are completely not even the truth. There's just no reality in there. So that's a dangerous space. And that's another advocacy for the meetings, for group therapy, listening to other people that have the same problems, how they dealt with it, and how they got through it. And just last thing on the whole group thing, knowing that you are not unique and that you are not broken and that your drinking problem isn't your fault, for me, was a catalyst to allow me to stop being so damn defensive and start admitting to some of the problem. And to say it's not my fault doesn't mean that it's not my choice to drink or not drink. That is on me. That's my responsibility. If I choose to drink, all bets are off. But and then it becomes my fault. But the fact that I have the wiring that I have, which is a faulty off switch, binge drinker, that isn't my fault. That's just the way that I'm wired. And once I was able to say that and believe it, then I could start to kind of forgive and give myself some grace and get past the shame and the guilt of thinking that it was willpower, that it was always just a choice, or that I was just going crazy sometimes because I would say one thing and then do completely the opposite thing. And it was that guy that lives right there, the one driving the alcohol machine. He made me do things that were just completely the opposite of what I said I would do or wanted to do. It was like I became a split personality at the end. And that is what led me to finally say, you know what? I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah. I love it. I say I'm low-level schizophrenic, because that voice is not us. I love talking about the voice and helping people understand what it is, which I won't get into now. I'll end by saying, so Laura, again, McCowan wrote this book, We Are the Luckiest. She has it called The 9 Things. And the number 1 and number 2, she starts from number 1. It says, number 1 is, it's not your fault. But number 2 is the key. It is your responsibility. And that's really, really helped me. And it's, to me, your responsibility to do the work, and that's the hardest part to do the work. To admit you have a problem and then to do the work. So